Sex Education is potentially the best high school-centered show I've ever seen, minus season 4. The humor, the emotional scenes, the dick jokes, it has it all. But for this video, I'm just gonna focus on the top 10 best scenes in the entire show, so if you haven't seen the show, don't worry, I've got you covered. Mr. Groff was probably the biggest in the show. He was a ridiculously mean headmaster and a horrible father and husband. He starts to change once he loses his job and wife though, and this scene is the first real change that we see from him. At a dinner at his brother's house amongst guests, his brother repeatedly puts him down for crafting a salad, an action so small that had brought Mr. Groff so much pleasure. After several digs from his brother, he finally snaps. He states that he's leaving, and in the bluntest way possible, he says that his brother is absolutely awful.
Because I can't bear to waste another precious second of my life pretending to like you. You're awful.
His self-realization that his life is a failure because of who he is just might be the rawest honesty I've ever seen in a show. He acknowledges that their father was probably the one who caused him to be like that, and he said it was such a shame. Being able to be honest about yourself and how you need to improve as well as others around you is such a monumental theme in the show, and I really thought it was just so powerful. When Maeve finds out she's pregnant, it's quite a devastating realization. I mean, come on, finding out you're pregnant as a teenager is probably your worst nightmare. She goes to get an abortion, and the show does an incredible job of portraying what the process is like emotionally. Feeling confused, numb, and guilty, Maeve goes through this process, and then is greeted outside by Otis, who, of course, is waiting for her. That coupled with the other woman talking to her in the abortion clinic, it's just so good. It's just such a raw scene. Adam has never been good at anything, like ever. So for him to apply himself to something and actually care about it was such a huge step, especially considering what a dickhead he was in the first season. Adam entered a dog show, and although he didn't win, he still enjoyed himself and was greeted with support from his mom and teacher. He finally applied himself to something, and he didn't win, but he succeeded. It was a huge growth moment for him, and one I really treasure. The moment gets even better when he finally comes out to his mom, and is vulnerable about his breakup with Eric. Look, relationships with your parents can be hard. But for Maeve, it was an especially difficult one. Her dad wasn't around, and her mom would only come around when she needed something. To make matters worse, her mom dealt with drugs and recently had a child. So yeah, enjoy this video sitting in your comfy beanbag chair, sipping your Yoo-hoo. Anyways, her mom comes back to live with her as a little family until Maeve realizes that she's using again. To keep her young sister safe, she makes the impossible decision to call social services on her mom. The show covers tons of moments that encapsulate what it's like to be a teenager, but this one really hits home some of the harsh realities of bad home lives that many people face. Seeing her mom freak out over losing her daughter was rough. So yeah. At the dance in season 1, a student is hanging from a prop high above the ground and is threatening to jump since his crush doesn't love him. Now, I don't know if he would have actually died if he fell, but the whole interaction is basically Otis talking him down from the ledge. Otis bears his heart to the kid and gives him hope for finding true love one day. This scene really gets me every time because Otis just kind of jumps into action for the kid, despite not really knowing what to do. That's what matters when helping people. You don't have to have it exactly all figured out, but just listening and showing genuine concern for someone really goes a long way, and that is repeated throughout the show. The way Otis helps people is by using his own experiences, his raw emotions, honesty, awkwardness, and just genuinely giving a shit for other people. For the most part, when Adam's mom talks to him about why she isn't going to take his dad back, she tells him that when you find someone you love, you have to tell them, no matter how scary it is. You just have to go for it because you're alive. This is why we're here, and there's no point in wasting any time. Adam proceeds to sprint to the show that Eric is at, stops the show, and asks Eric to hold his hand. This moment is huge because we finally see an acknowledgement of Adam's sexuality. He's finally accepting this part of himself, and we haven't seen it. Adam is finally ready to show the world who he really is and finally comfortable in his own skin. Stranded at a gas station, Maeve and Otis talk about the voicemail that Otis had left over a year ago, one that Maeve never got to hear. Otis proceeds to recite the voicemail, which featured him saying how proud of her he was, and how her having feelings for him was all he ever wanted, and that he loved her. Maeve asks Otis if he meant everything that he said, and he says of course he meant it. They Finally, kiss. The moment that we have all been waiting for, it finally happens, and it was glorious. Kinda weird because of she's like kinda with the other dude or whatever, but it finally happened. They're finally raw and open with each other, and they love each other so much. Eric's dad knew that his son was gay, but that didn't stop him from trying to push that part away from him. When Eric goes to a dance all dressed up, his dad tries to stop him from looking like that. Just outside of the dance, they have a raw conversation, and his dad opens up, saying that when he moved to the country, he tried so hard to fit in. He says he wants Eric to be proud, but he's very scared for him. Eric responds by saying it's better to be himself, and his dad says the most heartwarming thing ever after he yells at a cab driver when he goes,
"Maybe I am learning from my brave son."
a line that shows how scary it is to be vulnerable, but a risk that you have to take. Adam has been put down by his father his entire life, and because of this, he's rebelled and gone down a path that he's not proud of. This storyline evolves throughout the show, like in season 1 when he grabs his dad's face and says, "I hate you," to season 4 when he says, "You have made me feel like I was shit at everything since I was born." It's an incredibly complicated relationship, one that needed time, honesty, and improvement from both men. After Adam explores his sexuality and interests, Mr. Groff loses everything, and eventually it's Mr. Groff who realizes that he has to fix the relationship that he damaged with his son. After 4 seasons of pain, brutal honesty, and redemption, their self-growth culminates in a scene where they finally hug it out.
Quite like to hug you.
This is perhaps the first time they've ever really hugged or said "I love you," and it's so raw, it's so emotional, it's so honest. It was what they needed. And I'm not crying, you're crying. Amy is a pretty ditzy and goofy character, so seeing her in a serious situation was a bit unexpected. That being said, Amy's sexual assault on the bus hurt her in a way she wasn't quite ready for. She finds herself unable to go on the bus anymore, as it reminds her of the bad experience. She deals with intimacy issues and eventually breaks down in front of the girls during detention. Amy opens up about the experience, and in a moment of solidarity, the girls come together to ride the bus with Amy. This is by far the best scene in the show because it shows us that we're not alone, that sexual assault isn't our fault, and that it's just a stupid bus. The girls come together to support her, and it's so powerful. I get goosebumps every single time I see it. That's Sex Education. I love it. We don't talk about season 4 though, except for Adam and his dad, but whatever. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you so much for watching. I love you all. And yeah, let me know if you want me to do another video on sex ed because I love this show so much. Severely underrated, and there's a jillion other things I wanted to put on this list. So thanks so much for watching. Subscribe. See you next time. Bye.
Do you want to hug a horse?